Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. A few days ago, actually on October the 17th, Beijing released an explosive news saying that they have arrested and purged 9 generals. Actually, all these 9 generals are 3-star generals. They'd include generals like He Weidong, Miao Hua, He Hongjun, Wang Shoubing, and so on and so forth. Let me not bother you with the Chinese names. It's hard to recognize for the non-Mandarin speaking audience. Let me just read out part of the news release so that you can get a better idea of what their charges are. This is what they say. These generals, they committed serious disciplinary and legal violations and are suspected of duty-related crimes involving extraordinarily large sums, that means corruption, with conduct of an extremely grave nature and exceptionally adverse impact. That's the first paragraph. The second paragraph reads, they have been expelled from the party and the military, and their cases have been handed over to the military prosecutor's office for further investigation and prosecution. You may not know who these people are and how important they are. Let me give a very brief background introduction so that you can get a better idea. The first one, like I said, General He Weidong, he's a 3-star general, and he's the vice chairman of the CMC, Central Military Commission, the highest military commanding organ of the PLA, People's Liberation Army. And of course, he's also a member of the CMC. And most importantly, he's a member of the Politburo, the 24-member Politburo, the organ. So he's the number 3 guy of the Chinese army. Now that's big enough, right? That's the first person. The second one is Miao Hua. He's also a member of the CMC, the Central Military Commission. He's a director of the Department of Political Work. In other words, he's a commissar. Actually, he's a top commissar of the Chinese army. So that's important too. And number 3, the third general by the name of He Hongjun. He's the executive deputy director of this political commissar department. Namely, he's the number 2 commissar of the army, and that's important too. And the fourth general, by the name of Wang Shoubing, he's also an executive deputy director of the so-called JOCC. JOCC is the short for Joint Operations Command Center. Let me say it again, Joint Operations Command Center. That's big enough. And number 5, General Lin Xiangyang, another 3-star general. He's a commander of the East Theater. And actually, a few years ago, when he was promoted to that position, there are all kinds of news reports about him, saying that he would be the commander when there's an invasion against Taiwan. He's the top commander of the operation. And now he's been purged. That's number 5. Number 6, General Qin Shutong. He's a commissar of the army. Number 6, Yuan Huazhi. He's a commissar of the navy. And number 8, General Wang Shoubing. He's a commander of the rocket force. And the last one, Wang Chunning. He's a commander of the armed police. He's not a police. He's a military officer. And the armed forces, so-called armed forces, is actually a different branch of the PLA, People's Liberation Army. So this is a brief introduction of their background, and you have some idea about how important they are and who they are. After the brief introduction of these people, I think a further introduction of these people's background is in order. Let's start with General He Weidong, the number 3 guy of the Chinese army. He was actually promoted a little bit more than 2 years ago. And he, let me put it this way, he was advanced 3 levels without interruption at a sitting. Simple as that. He was a commander of the East Theater, the theater facing Taiwan, supposedly the first unit that's going to invade Taiwan. And he was handpicked and appreciated by Xi Jinping himself. And Xi Jinping promoted him all at once, 3 levels at a time. So they said that he was riding a rocket to that position. And that was how appreciated he was by Xi Jinping himself. But he was promoted like a rocket, but he dropped also like a rocket. So unfortunately. And he was probably the most short-lived member of the Politburo and most short-lived vice chairman of the CMC. And that's He Weidong. And the second one I want to introduce to you is General Miao Hua. Like I said, he's the #1 commissar of the People's Liberation Army. But actually, he was the, how should I call it? He was the chief architect of the personnel department. Anyone who be promoted to a general, either 1 star, 2 star, 3 stars, would have to go through his scrutiny first. So he's like the recruiter of the generals, and that's how important he was, and that's his first function. The second function is that he was the one who was responsible for surveilling all the generals in the military. So that's how important he was. So they called him the commissar of the commissar, and he's a #1 commissar. So that's General Miao Hua. So they called General He Weidong and General Miao Hua as the first and second most trusted confidants of Xi Jinping in the army. So that's how important they are. And these are the 2 top generals. The third one is by the name of He Hongjun. And like I said, he was the #2 commissar in the Chinese army. And that's how important he was. And now he's been purged. And the fourth one I want to introduce is General Wang Houbin, who's the commander of the Rocket Force. As you know, that Rocket Force is the #1 army or the #1 unit when they want to invade Taiwan, they want to deter Japan, or they want to intimidate the United States from entering into a war against Taiwan, against an invasion war against Taiwan. That's what they call the bayonet unit of the PLA. And so that's important enough. But one thing I want to call out attention is, yeah, he's been purged. But let's take a look at his predecessors. The first commander of the Rocket Force is by the name of Wei Fenghe. The second one, the second term, the one following Wei Fenghe, was by the name of Zhou Yaning. The third one was by the name of Li Yucao. All these 3 generals, or all these 3 commanders of the Rocket Force were handpicked by Xi Jinping himself and also purged by Xi Jinping himself. So Wang Houbin is the 4th commander of the Rocket Force that's been promoted by Xi Jinping and also purged by Xi Jinping himself. So what does it tell you? What does it tell you? For the sake of time, let me introduce the last one, the 5th one, General Wang Chunning, who was the commander of the Armed Police. One of the key functions, or one of the major functions of the armed forces, is to station in Beijing to safeguard the security or the safety of the capital city, Beijing, and also of the leaders, the party leaders, the top leaders of the Communist Party. That's how important this unit is. So the following question is, what are their charges? If all 9 3-star generals were purged, what are their charges? The next day following the announcement of the purge, the PLA Daily, the People's Liberation Army Daily, printed an editorial. The title is, "Unswervingly carried the armed forces anti-corruption campaign through to the end." Ostensibly, their first charge is corruption. Yes, that's true. It's always the superficial charge they use for purging these people. But that's not the real reason, because in the same editorial, they also mentioned this. All these people lost all integrity and loyalty. And that's a key word. Let me say it again. They lost all integrity and loyalty. Integrity has to do with the character, but what about loyalty? Loyalty to what and to whom? And that's a key question. The editorial also gave the answer in the following paragraph. It says like this. These 9 journalists, they severely sabotaged the fundamental principle of the party's command of the gun and the institutional responsibility of the CMC chairman, the Central Military Commission chairman, namely Xi Jinping. So meaning what? Meaning what? A coup d'etat? A mutiny? Did they form a group to do that? So isn't that serious? That's serious. So that's what we read out of the editorial. And I suppose that's a hidden message they want to convey to their readers. So the fourth question that we want to raise is that what are the implications of the purge of these 9 generals? First, it seems that the purge proves that Xi Jinping may lack the good judgment of his general's character or ability. If you make such a mistake for one time, that could be accidental. For the second time, then we may question your judgment. For the fourth time, the fifth time, and the ninth time, I just don't know what to say about his judgment of the people. And that's the first implication. And secondly, about this purge, some people may say or may praise their determination to find corruption. On the other hand, doesn't that prove that this army is so corrupt that people may question their ability to fight the war? Doesn't that also mean that the anti-corruption campaign that Xi Jinping has been working on for 12, 13 years has met a total failure or debacle? Wouldn't people think that way? And then, as we all know, that there are about 35 to 40 three-star generals in the People's Liberation Army. And this time they purged 9 because of corruption. And a few years ago, they purged 6 three-star generals. Altogether, there have been 15 three-star generals being purged because of corruption, if that's the true case. So that means 15 out of 35, or 15 out of 40. That means anywhere from 40% to 43% of the generals, of the top generals, are corrupt. So what do you think of these generals? And furthermore, so what do you think of this army? So that also means that the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, is not or cannot be a modernized army that can fight a decent war in modern days. Let's go through their positions again so that you get a better idea of what I just said. These people include the vice chairman of the CMC, the number 3 guy of the army, and it also include the top commissar and the number 2 commissar and the executive deputy director of the JOCC, commanders of the East Theater and of the Rocket Force and of the Armed Forces and of the Armed Police, and also the commissars of the Army and of the Navy. So if the top positions are occupied by these corrupt generals, how can you expect them to fight? How can you expect them to fight decently? So that's a very serious question. I'm not saying that they cannot fight altogether. What I'm saying is that with this kind of corruption, with this kind of revelation of the corruption, I think it's only legitimate for us to question their ability to fight. Of course, that doesn't mean that we have to let down our guards. That doesn't mean that. But at least that gives us a good indicator to determine how good they are. Well, there's a lot more to talk about on this topic. I think I'll do some follow-up in the future time. But anyway, because of the time limit, we have to stop here today. That's all I want to share with you today. I hope you like it. If you haven't subscribed to it, please do so and share it with your friends. And do remember to click the icon bell. And that's all for today. I'll see you next time.